Good evening, everybody. We'll start with today's session of philosophy, and we are on the concluding part of the chapter number 14 from Kant's philosophy, where he tried to explain the concept of susceptibility in relation with the aphorism number 30 to 34. And at the same time, he tried to explain exactly why the natural disease it requires certain conditions to develop, which are those conditions, and then how it develops, why it is weaker than medicinal disease, because medicinal disease never requires so much of conditions. Every medicine acts in every individual. Only thing is that it never used to produce similar types of symptomatology in every patient, but every poor, but little bit same it used to produce its action. Susceptibility plays very vital role in the production of disease, at the same time in the application of a medicine. And how to judge this susceptibility, how to understand how the patient presents, in what way he reflects his disease, all those things which you have to take into consideration to understand the level of susceptibility. And if we are able to judge exact susceptibility, then accordingly our medicine and potency we select. So basically, if two rules I have told you, that if the susceptibility is high, specifically in acute case, the potency should be high and less is the repetition. Opposite is, if the susceptibility is low, the potency is low and repetition till the susceptibility gets aroused. So these are very simple rules with which you can approach. This is basic thing one must understand, but this is not only the things one must also understand. There are many factors which we have to take into consideration when we judge the susceptibility as well as when we judge the potency. So these are things which we have discussed in length, and we are coming to the last concluding part of the this Kant's philosophy on this susceptibility. We'll start with the paragraph that is commonly the appearance. The medicine appears to act all that time, and you should be clear in your mind that this is the only in an appearance. It really means that certain length of time elapses before another dose is necessary, vice versa, until another state of susceptibility has arrived. So again, we say whenever a medicine ceases to be homeopathic, it is of no use to administer that medicine any longer, as it will act on the patient only upon an artificial susceptibility. By this, we mean that certain sensitive patients always have susceptibility to high potency. We have thus two things to deal with: the acute case created by the acute disease itself, and the chronic state, which is the natural state of the patient born under the Maya. Now, when in acute state, the patient has satisfied the susceptibility to the contagion, there is a period in which the disease cause can run no longer operate upon him. He is immune against any further influx of the disease cause. But when the remedy ceases to be homeopathic, the patient has not this immunity against more of its power because of the possibility of variance in the hands of the physician. The potency being given to the patient outside of his own degree of susceptibility, he may be damaged. So here he explains the states of disorders, acute and chronic. Generally, when we think about the acute disease happens because the person is susceptible. He is highly susceptible, that's why he catches that contagion. Otherwise, he would not have. Any contagion affects the human being only in the susceptible states of that human being. If the person is healthy, having normal susceptibility, he will not catch any disease, any contagion. But if he is in a susceptible state and he comes in contact with contagion, then definitely he gets affected and it produces its disease. And if you imagine, if we judge the susceptibility, if we judge properly the totality of the symptoms, we find it out a right remedy for that patient in right potency. Here, right potency means if susceptibility is high in acute states, so definitely the potency is high. You have given one or two doses of the medicines in high potency. And what happens when you give the medicine? It is the artificial disorder which you wish to induce inside the body. The vital force gets free. The susceptibility which was aroused is matched. This is what is called as the satisfying the susceptibility. Now we have satisfied that susceptibility with the artificial disease produced by your medicine. The patient gets settled. He comes again to the phase of normal state of health, and the susceptibility becomes normal. Unless and until again his susceptibility gets altered, he will not caught the disease again. So this is very common with the acutes. Chronics also the same state happens to be there, but chronic generally are the products of the miasms. So miasm is there. All the peoples are having the miasms, but psoric disorder or acute disorders are the product of explosion of psora, and that is what is called as a hypersusceptibility because of some exciting cause acute disorder develops. The miasmatic background always remains to be the psoric. But in other chronic diseases, it might be a psoric chronic condition, it might be psychotic chronic condition, it might be a syphilitic chronic condition, or it might be a mixed miasmatic condition. For example, you are treating a case of chronic tuberculosis who had already on the ATT, who has consumed ATT for year or two, and he developed it again, and now patient is in a weak state, absolutely bedridden. He's so weak that he doesn't have a flesh in his body, and if he has to talk something, you cannot hear what he is talking. The susceptibility is very low in such case. The disorder is chronic. He's coughing. Sometimes it is blood tinged sputa comes out. He's losing flesh while eating well. Not even eating well. He never have good appetite. And he lost the whole strength. And this patient, if comes to you, now here you have to catch that patient's susceptibility is absolutely low. Now, if you give him even a right remedy, but in wrong potency, it will do a killer segregation. It will damage the patient's health. In such types of cases, where you are dealing with the low susceptible states, where the strength is lost, and you have to arouse the susceptibility, you have to give him a strength, then you have to start with low potency. Better potency is always LM, but every time you cannot get the LM. If you start with any other potency, 30 potency, for example, then you have to repeat till the susceptibility gets aroused, and then you have to stop. Here you have to stimulate the potency. You have to stimulate the susceptibility because he should gain the strength. Unless and until the person gains the strength, his susceptibility will not get aroused. So this thing you have to understand properly. This is the thing which one has to catch. And this he explains over there that in acute the states are different, in chronic the states are different. Generally, when low susceptible states are there, you have to catch exactly that low susceptible state, and then accordingly the potency you have to select. So these things Kent has tried, but he has tried it in little bit difficult language. My suggestion is that make it simple and keep those two things which I have given to you. If susceptibility is high, potency high, less repetition. Susceptibility is low, potency low, more repetition till the susceptibility are out. And then he turns to the aphorism number 33. In accordance with this fact, it is undeniably shown by all experience that the living human organism is much more disposed and has greater liability to be acted on and to have its health deranged by the medicinal powers than by morbific noxious agents and infectious miasm. Or in other words, that the morbific noxious agents possesses a power of morbidly deranging man's health that is subordinate and conditional and often very conditional, whilst medicinal agents have an absolute unconditional power greatly superior to the former. And this is what Hahnemann says. The medicinal disease, the artificial disease which you are going to produce acts unconditionally. This Hahnemann states boldly. Actually, it also acts conditionally, but not that severely as the natural disease used to develop. Natural disease, definitely, the whole condition should get satisfied, then natural disease develops. Artificial disease, it is comparatively unconditional. And because of which said that artificial disease produced because of medicines is always stronger than the natural disease. And that's why the nature's law of cure works. That's why your remedy cures the natural disease because they are same in manifestation. Their causes are kind is different, but their manifestations are separate, same. And because of which stronger removes the weaker one permanently. And then he explains about the same aphorism. When we look over the improper use of all sorts of medicines, we can but conclude that human race, because of drug taking, has been greatly disordered in the economy. You have heard Hahnemann speak of management of chronic diseases. He distinctly states that the greatest difficulties are those that have been brought about in the economy by continuous drug taking. It is not that drugs themselves are laid up in the economy, but that lifelong disorder is created. Think of poor old individuals who were in the habit of taking sulfur and molasses. Think of those who were perpetually trapping their lives with the blue masks. Think of the Western sufferers who have filled themselves every year with quinine, pancake to keep out the chill. Those people who are disordered, that it takes years of careful prescribing to turn them into a state of order. And now he is explaining if you understand this concept, then how much medicine is needed? The medicine is needed only to remove the natural disease. That's all. You don't have to give it in larger doses. You don't have to give quinine in larger doses, which causes a lot of damage to the patient. You don't have to give any strong antibiotics for longer time of duration, which causes the damage to the different tissue. So it is if you understand this concept, then what is needed is just give a right remedy in right potency, and that's all. That is what you have to understand. If it is acute, no so much of repetition. In case of chronic, a little bit repetition till the susceptibilities are out. And that's all. It is not like for months together with the larger doses of the medicine, the crude medicines which you have to give. Not at all. Medicines, even though you have made it dynamic, they works and they works unconditionally and they are stronger than the natural disease. And that's why whatever Hahnemann have said in those aphorisms, 30 to 33, he wants to clear one thing in your mind. Medicines are always stronger than the natural disease. Even though they are dynamic, they have a capacity to act unconditionally on a human being and causes a cure or develops cure. And to conclude this last aphorism, which he explains in relation with aphorism 34, in 34 aphorism, Hahnemann repeats two propositions to which we have already alluded. The first proposition is that in order to cure, the medicines must be able to produce in the human body an artificial disease similar to that which is to be cured. This has been fully illustrated and explained. The second proposition is that artificial disease must be of greater degree of intensity. So these are two things. The medicine which you are going to choose must have produced the change in or altered the state of health of the healthy human being. So because of which we know that has a medicinal value. And second important thing, it should be stronger than the natural disease. The second proposition is that the artificial disease must be of a greater degree of intensity. The matter of intensity has already been explained as something higher, more internal, something superior or prior. Intensity or power is proportionate to degree of approximation towards the primitive substances. There is no thought of intensity in any other direction. The cause of disease and cure exist within the primitive substance and not in the ultimate material form, although the immaterial cause of disease continues in disease ultimately. So here he explains that when you choose a remedy, that remedy already should be proved on healthy human beings. You know the symptomatology, and you must know that in dynamic form it used to produce such thing. If in a patient who comes to you with similar types of symptomatology, give that remedy in proper potency. That remedy will work only if you would have given in dynamic doses because disease is already dynamic. The remedy should match at the same plane, and if it matches at the same plane, then definitely it works. It should be the remedy should work at the dynamic plane and cure that dynamic disease, not the ultimates. So it is not your aim to remove the pathology. Your aim is to treat the internal dynamic disorder. The ultimates will disappear by its own. Ultimates are the end products of the disease. You don't have to concentrate on ultimates. The cause of the disease and cure exist within the primitive substance and not in the ultimate material form, although the immaterial cause of disease continues in disease ultimate. The bacteriologists have crawled into confusion because they do not know in their science that causes continue into effects. The bacteria may contain because causes are continued into ultimates, but the primitive cause is not in bacteria. The bacteria themselves have a cause. So what he explains over there that ultimately the primitive means dynamic derangement of the vital force. So basically the dynamic derangement of the vital force is responsible to bring the bacteria over there. Bacteria are not the causes of the disease, but bacteria are the ultimates. You find the bacteria over there because the patient is already diseased prior to it, because of which the bacteria affects the human being. Otherwise, bacteria are there inside the human being. Many varieties of bacteria are there, but still they never cause disease because patient is in state of health. When he is diseased, then those bacteria becomes the causative organism, the prime cause of it. And if you understand the disease lies in this dynamic plane, then we treat that in the same dynamic plane with the help of proper remedy in proper potency. And unless and until we judge the susceptibility, it is not possible for us to come to a right potency. And this aspect he tried to explain in this whole chapter, that it is related with the judging the susceptibility of the human. So if the patient comes to you with a very acute agony and doctor, please treat me. Well, he's in agony, he's absolutely disturbed, then you judge his susceptibility is very high. That's why he's expressing the disease. Then you have whatever remedy comes, that remedy should be taken and given in the high potency. You should not give him low. It will not going to produce any use, or it will not going to produce cure, but sometimes it stimulate the condition. If you give a right potency, high potency, 1 or 2 doses are sufficient to satisfy that condition. The patient can be cured. So this concept he tried to explain over there in this chapter, that you have to find it out exactly how the patient presents, what he expresses, where he expresses, what pathology with which he expresses, what medicine you have chosen. It also depends upon the medicine, what remedy you are prescribing. If you are prescribing acute remedy, then many times the Lemsipa is a very strong remedy because in its crude form, just a dynamic effect produced on you when you cut onion. So it is a remedy which we don't have to go to high potency to apply. It is 30 or 200 is sufficient in case of LMCPA. But if we are giving another remedy, for example, if you are thinking about the Rustox, then you can give Rustox in high potential, so 1M, 10M. So it depends. It varies from medicine to medicine also. It varies from individual to individual. It varies from susceptibility of one person to the susceptibility of another person. So many factors which you have to take into consideration when you have to decide the potencies. And all those matters when you have to find it out the right potency. So that's all regarding the susceptibility. He has tried his level best to explain, and at the same time, Hahnemann wants to explain medicines are always stronger than natural disease. You give the medicines in proper potency, they will remove the natural disease permanently. So the explanation of nature's law of cure with a reasoning behind that he has tried to explain over there. So that's all for today's session. Oh, tomorrow we'll start with the next chapter, and today evening we'll meet with the same remedy, the hepar sulfuricum, second part of it. Yesterday we have learned little bit about hepar sulfuricum. Today we'll at 8:30 we'll meet again with the hepar sulfuricum. So that's all for today. Any queries there?
Hello, sir.
Hmm?
Yes, sir. I have one query, sir.
Hmm?
In natural diseases, we consider susceptibility as a criteria for repetition of dose or for selection of potency. What should be the criteria in injury cases or accidental cases regarding potency and repetition?
Generally, how the patient presents in accidental cases, when we are thinking, we have, it is the first priority is always the all auxiliary measures, whatever requires, whether the case is surgical, whether the case requires the stitches, or whether it just requires the dressings, all those things which you have to take into consideration, and accordingly you have to choose your remedy. Second thing, how much sensitive the patient is. How much sensitive patient is, that means how much pain he is expressing. Every patient expresses pain in a different manner. Some, even though there is tremendous, they are having the pain, they never expresses it, they keeps it inside. Then you have to give it with the low or moderate. But patient who is acutely presenting it, then you have to go for high. So you have to decide how the patient presents, in what way he expresses. It varies from individual to individual. Even the injury happens, the patient reflects it in a different manner. Some patient says, doctor, it's okay, I will I will bear that. So his susceptibility, he is strong enough. But there are certain who comes and they cries, they shrieks, that's what. Then susceptibility is very high. You have to match that. So you have to understand that concept at that specific time. Okay?
Okay, sir. And repetition also in the same way, no?
Yes, yes. Repetition, it bears repetition if you are giving like specific injury remedies. Arnica bears repetition. Calendula locally you can utilize. It varies, depends what remedy you are prescribing.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So that's all for today. Thank you. We'll meet at 8:30.